Alright, so the next step to finding the other two Pythagorean identities is to use the equation that we already have, our original, cosine squared plus sine squared equals 1, and come up with the remaining two. So we've got to do it in terms of their reciprocals, basically. So there's a trick. You take everything in your first equation, and the first step we're going to do is divide everything by cosine squared of theta. So we're going to take cosine squared plus sine squared equal to 1, and we're going to divide everything in there by cosine squared of theta. As long as you do the same thing to every part of this problem, then you're not changing anything in it. All we're doing is changing how it looks. Well, cosine squared divided by sine squared, that's just 1, plus sine squared over cosine squared. If we didn't have the squared, sine over cosine, that's a quotient property. That means that that is equal to tangent squared of theta. 1 over cosine squared, once again, you can pretend the square is not in there and then put it in at the end. 1 over cosine is the same thing as secant squared of theta. So there is your second property, second Pythagorean identity, I should say. And I don't memorize this. I memorize the first one, cosine squared plus sine squared is 1. Then I know, okay, divide everything by cosine squared, and we're going to get my second identity. Then, to follow the same process, we're going to divide everything by sine squared of theta. We could go through and do it to every term, but divide everything by 1 is not going to do anything. So if you want to remember it as, okay, take your original, divide everything by each other, then you'll get to the other two Pythagorean identities. So we'll do the same process. Cosine squared plus sine squared equals 1. That's my original. Divide everything by sine squared. And then we've got our sine squared here. Cosine over sine is cotangent, but because they're both squared, we have cotangent squared. Sine squared over sine squared is 1. 1 over sine squared is cosecant squared. And there is your second Pythagorean identity. So we've got our original up here in pink, and then our other two properties that I have over to the left in black. It doesn't matter which way you go. Sometimes you'll see the original Pythagorean written as sine squared plus cosine squared is 1. Doesn't matter the order that these two are in. It's just whatever you go through and remember. And then whichever one you divide first, you might divide by sine squared first. Then this would be your second. Then this would be your third. But it doesn't matter.